Joshua, welcome to Strasbourg.
Thank you.
It's great to welcome you with this amazing feature film, A Desert. Can you tell us about the first impulse of the movie? What came first? Is it the location? Is it the characters? Is it the story?
Well, this one was a little bit different than other things that I've written, and this was definitely the character of Alex, the photographer. And I have a background in photography and studied photography as well as studied film. But I liked this idea of this character that was very similar to a group of photographers that were kind of known in the 70s in the US as the new topographics photographers. And I thought, well, what if we had a photographer that was akin to one of these photographers? And what they would do is that they would go basically on these, long road trips, photographing particularly the American West. But it was also the American West of the 70s, and American West has all of this iconography from cinema and what it means in terms of the history of America and all of that. But they were mainly photographing things like hotel rooms, billboards, new housing developments, just the sort of like what the new identity was of America at that time. The sort of intersection of suburbia and the natural world. And so I was like, well, what if, this sort of tradition has continued into present day, and there are people that are operating in the same way. But I thought, well, if we had this character, well, let me start to make his body of work. Let me make the photographs that he would take. So I went out for a couple of years and photographed like I would think this guy would photograph things I think that he would photograph. And along the way in my travels, so I went everywhere from Utah to Arizona, Nevada, all throughout California. And through my travels, it started to inform locations. It informed plot elements. And so it started to really that was really the spark that started to blow out the idea of really the trajectory of this character. So really it started with the character and his photographs and his photographic practice.
So in a way, you did a lot of location scouting without even knowing it's going to be for a movie.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and it was great because, we shot in a number of places that were there. There were things that I encountered, like abandoned movie theater that was adjacent to this abandoned military base. And that started me thinking about well, he's a photographer. He makes images. There's abandoned movie theater that's very loaded, What if we start to do these things? I found a drive-in, out in the middle of the desert. And so a lot of these elements really, again, informed the movie and what takes place in the movie.
So, in fact, where was the movie shot? Is it the Mojave Desert or is it Nevada? Or
it is all shot in California. It's shot in Mojave. Shot in Mojave, California. It's shot in other parts of the high desert of California, just outside of Death Valley. All throughout. Some of it's shot in downtown Los Angeles. Some of it's shot, in other areas of Los Angeles as well. But most of the exteriors are in and the motel is out in the desert.
There's an echo with a lot of horror films in America. We kind of feel like that America is afraid of what's inside the country. You know, you often feel it's the story of deliverance. Right. When you go inside the country, when you go in remote locations, you might encounter all different characters.
Yeah,
and something all different can happen to you.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, it's movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Hills Have Eyes or Deliverance, like you said. All of these films, a notion that I was trying to play within the movie was, when you go to places like that, that is what I think of. You think of well, what if my car were to break down? Who are you going to encounter along the way? Who's going to help you? It's not going to be the Boy Scout troop is going to come and fix your tire, or the old couple's not going to come and fix your tire. Some crazy desert maniacs are going to come and hurt you, or worse, So that was this idea of playing with your expectations. Movies, they're very much a mirror to like what, how we operate in our lives and how we see the world around us. So wanting to take plot elements in the movie and have them be in communication with a history of movies that are akin to, the genre of movies that a desert is playing with.
Exactly. And as we say, when it comes to the kind of characters, the better the villain.
Yeah.
And your villains are just amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Those two characters, the couple, and especially the guy.
Yeah.
It works in a wonderful way because they're mesmerizing. They convey so much fear. How do you find those actors? How did you work with them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I had an awesome casting director, Gail Pillsbury, and I had cast some of the movie myself, and then she helped me cast the rest of the movie. And she got a ton of audition tapes, and both Zach, who plays the Rennie character, and Ashley, who plays Susie Q, they were just audition tapes. And I saw them, and both of them were doing, Zach his tape was unlike anything I had seen, and I was really interested in him. And I talked with him, and he seemed to really get what the project was about and what I was trying to do with the project. And then he also he or like his representatives had sent a clip of some movies that he had been in, because I hadn't seen of any of his other movies, but I liked his audition tape so much I wanted to see more of what he had done. And I saw this clip of this movie, and I called Cuck, and I was like, I don't know why they sent this to me. This guy is not even in the scene that they sent me this clip for. It doesn't make any sense. But in fact, it was him. He had just put on like 70 pounds in this very low budget independent movie to play this character. And so I was like, wow, it was impressive, because we're a low budget movie, and that he had that level of dedication for something like that demonstrated to me that he would be a really great collaborator and not afraid to do some of the things that the character required. And then Ashley Smith, who plays Susie Q, she, in the script, she, on her tape, she did a scene from the script like you normally would. But in the script, it says, listens to like, a certain type of techno music. And what she played in her audition tape was exactly what I was thinking of, because, techno is like a very large world of music of different types. And some of it, it's like can be really bad, and some of it can be really great, just like anything. And so, but she really nailed sort of what I was thinking and what I wanted the character to be playing. And then her performance just was great. She was already in costume, and it was just like, oh, there she is. Like, and she was amazing. She hasn't been in a number of films, and I think she's definitely, you'll see more of her.
That's great. Looking forward to it. And even if it's a small budget film, we can feel your understanding of the cinema when we watch it. And mainly with the structure of the movie, because the movie, in a way, has the same kind of structure. Many times you must have heard this than Psycho.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because that was a very conscious choice. So, my idea, the movie being just as much about Alex and his wife Sam's experience is about movies. It's about our relationship to movies, or the nightmares, that movies can induce with us, and so the idea of doing, I think, a bold move of like, well, what if we made this movie off the backbone of a very well-known movie, and maybe you don't realize it as it's happening, I think is something that is interesting, and I hope, people respond to that.
I guess. And I think the second half of the movie has a very David Lynch vibe.
Mm-hmm.
The road, nights, the way you shoot like the outlines. It's there's a very Lost Highway or Wild at Heart vibe.
Yeah.
Were you conscious of it, or is it like something that's in you? Or...
I think it's, I'm a huge fan of, his films. I mean, seeing some of his earlier movies, when I was a teenager, left a big impression on me. So I feel like that is very much in kind of my DNA, are some of those movies. It is an interesting thing because it is about the desert. There are, there are some similar things with, I think, like Lost Highway, which I think is an amazing movie. I very much wanted to avoid it feeling like it was that movie because, why would you want to do that? But I can definitely, he's, a filmmaker I definitely admire. And, I feel like some of the aesthetics, there are some potential overlaps there. Yeah, and for sure.
But those kinds of movies like Psycho or David Lynch movie, they set up like an American mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And especially maybe a Californian mythology.
Yeah.
And I think your movie totally fits to this.
Yeah.
It's quite familiar to the audience because you put a foot in that world really easily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like the American desert is like this iconic thing. I mean, you've seen it in so many different iterations in cinema and, popular culture. I mean, and that's what's amazing to me about the desert and why, this idea of a blank canvas that is, reoccurring throughout the movie. The desert is very much that, it's like the desert is a science fiction, they film, Planet of the Apes is shot out in the desert, or, the desert is also, really scary, all of the whole, horror movies that have been done out in the desert. There is something romantic about, there's something transcendent about the desert, right? People go out there for, a spiritual awakening or something like that. It's hot, really hot. It's also can be really cold. I mean, it's just like this totally, it can be almost anything, and, I try to do that a little bit with the movie where, the desert is really quiet. It's also incredibly loud, as we see right outside the motel room. We did a lot with the sound design in the movie to make it feel really chaotic, because there's trains, there's, traffic going by, there's busted up, air conditioners running, fans going, all this stuff, the wind, and it's this sort of like, I was trying to juxtapose throughout the movie the different ideas of what the desert can be. And, again, it's just like, I think.
And at the end, the movie it's quite bold because it's trying to take us somewhere else with the end of the story.
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much for our audience who's going to discover the movie.
Yeah.
But we feel like you could have gone further with the end of the story.
Yeah,
we could have. You could have explained more. About all this setup.
Yeah.
Were you tempted to do it, or do you always wanted to stay a bit mysterious about it?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about the movies that I love or the art that I love, it's usually something where it's not everything's wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. Where I'm thinking about it. I'm talking to people about it. There's room for, having different interpretations to it. I mean, I have what it means to me, and that is one thing. But I love the idea that the audience can bring their own experience and their own interpretation into what really happens at the end. It's deliberately set up to do that. I mean, it's all in the script. We shot the script. I think most people would probably be surprised if they read the script that it is exactly, there's maybe one scene that's slightly different, but, we shot the script. That was always the conceit of the movie from day one. And it's just like, what's some of the feedback on the film and some of, the first reactions of the film that have, meant a lot to me have been people saying like, I watched that movie and I couldn't stop thinking about it like the next day. And it's like, that to me is like the best compliment, you know, because if it sticks with you, then that means that, you know, we've actually done something, you know, because it's so hard, you know. I mean, think about how many things you watch and you immediately forget about.
Exactly. That's, well, that's absolutely true. It's,
Yeah.
we are just, you know, drawn into images.
Yeah.
About in storytelling.
Yeah.
And if something sticks,
Yeah.
if something is weird or fascinating enough,
Yeah.
That's where value is.
Yeah. 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 Same. I very much agree. I mean, in this movie too, I mean, it's so much, like you said, it's about movies, it's about images. I mean, it's just like about the different way that we make, you know, images or how they function, right? You know, it's art, it's forensic evidence, it's pornography, it's movies, it's entertainment, it's advertising. I mean, and all of that stuff is baked into the movie. I mean, so it's like, you know, they can be very disposable. They also be very powerful. And, you know, that is something that is super exciting to me and something that, again, I was trying to really get across in this film.
Exactly. Thanks a lot for your answers.
Thank you.
It's great.
Awesome.
Thanks.